Floki built boats capable of crossing the North Atlantic using tools forged by himself without manuals, without the internet, and without the certainty that he would ever return home. You, with access to all human knowledge in a device in your pocket, cannot fix a simple leak in the kitchen sink or assemble a piece of furniture without freaking out. This is not a personal criticism. It is the observation of a silent collapse of competence plaguing modern civilization, the death of fundamental self-sufficiency. Western society, over the last century, has replaced the need to know how to do with the ease of paying to get it done. We have outsourced not only manual labor, but the mental process of practical problem-solving itself. In contrast, the Viking Age allowed for no intermediaries. A shipbuilder like Floki was not just a carpenter, he was a naval engineer, a metallurgist who understood the temper of iron, a forester who knew which tree to cut and when, and a navigator who tested his own product. His life depended on the integration of these skills. Ours today depends on a network of hyper-specialized experts, where the failure of a single point, the plumber who doesn't show up, the electrician who is late, paralyzes our entire capacity to act. This radical contrast reveals three brutal lessons we must relearn to recover lost competence. Lesson number 1, the paradox of the perfect tool. The first lesson the Viking Age teaches us is the paradox of the perfect tool. We live in the era of definitive tools. We have screwdrivers with adjustable torque, laser saws, and survival kits that promise to resolve any scenario. The result, ironically, is not an increase in competence, but the proliferation of superficiality. For Floki, the axe was not just an instrument to fell trees, it was an extension of his knowledge regarding the wood's grain. He needed to master the exact anatomy of the oak, the direction of the fibers, and the breaking point before the blade even touched the bark. He didn't just use the tool, he understood the physics behind it. We, today, instead of seeking mastery of the process, seek the tool that promises to automate or simplify the process to the point of making it invisible. The problem is that when the tool fails, when the battery dies, when the part is lost, or when the exact screw model isn't in your 100-piece kit, you become completely inoperative. Your knowledge has dissolved. The test of competence is not, do you have the most expensive kit? It is, could you solve this problem with less than half the tools? Fundamental competence lies in the ability to improvise, to understand the principles of leverage, cutting, and joining so that you can replicate the function of a sophisticated tool using a piece of stone and a handle if necessary. The Viking knew the tool was replaceable, but the knowledge of the material and geometry was irreplaceable. Start fixing things with the minimum resources possible. Force yourself to understand the mechanics, not just follow the manual. Lesson number 2, the theory of residual competence. The second lesson is the theory of residual competence, what remains in your mind and in your hands after the project ends. If you watched a YouTube tutorial to change the sink trap and had to pause the video every 10 seconds, your residual competence is 0. You didn't learn, you merely imitated. Residual competence is the deposit of skill that accumulates through deliberate repetition and immediate feedback. Viking shipbuilders didn't build a single ship, the Drakkar. They built dozens over their lifetimes. Each overlapping plank, each patch of pitch, each line of rivets informed the next ship. They were in a cycle of continuous improvement, where the error was corrected immediately and the success was internalized in the muscular and cognitive system. Ours today depends on a network of hyper-specialized experts, where the failure of a single point, the plumber who doesn't show up, the electrician who is late, paralyzes our entire capacity to act. In building real competence, you must transform the task from emergency solution to mastery practice. For example, if you are learning to work with basic electricity, don't just change the burnt-out outlet. Disassemble the old outlet. Understand why it burned, study the wiring pattern, then change another outlet in another room without consulting the manual. Force the mind to retrieve the knowledge. Residual competence is what allows a Floki facing an unexpected storm in the North Sea to know exactly where the ship's hull might give way and how to reinforce it with whatever is available. It is not memory, it is intuition forged by hundreds of hours of physical interaction with the material.
If you want to recover self-sufficiency, you need to stop outsourcing your memory. Every new skill you acquire must be tested and repeated until it becomes an automatic reaction, a part of your cognitive and motor repertoire. It is not enough to know what to do, you must know how to do it under pressure, in the dark, or with limited resources. This is the differential between the modern individual, dependent and fragile, and the Viking individual, robust and autonomous. True strength does not lie in the possession of tools, but in the ability to build a bridge of knowledge between the problem and the solution without the need for a guide. This process of internalization leads us directly to the third and most dangerous lesson, the one that defines the difference between the amateur and the master. Lesson number 3, the cost of inaction. Modern society sells safety as the ultimate value. Floki and any artisan of his time had no insurance, no warranty, or the option to call a technician. If the boat sank, the failure was not a financial inconvenience, it was death or the failure of an entire expedition. The absence of a real and immediate cost for error destroys the urgency to learn, and consequently, the depth of mastery. If your faucet leaks, you call a plumber and pay $200. It's an annoyance, but not a catastrophe. For the Viking, the error was a brutal but infallible teacher. We operate under the fallacy of zero tolerance for error. We are taught to avoid any task where the risk of failure is perceptible. This creates a systemic fragility. If you have never faced the real possibility of breaking something, a pipe, an engine, a system, to learn how to fix it, you will never develop the cognitive resilience and motor confidence necessary to deal with the physical world. Floki's reward was not just the functionality of his boat, it was survival and prestige. Your reward when fixing the faucet or the car is autonomy and self-efficacy, which are currencies far more valuable than the money saved on labor. The most common objection to this point is the fallacy of specialization. I am a software expert, or in finance, not in plumbing. I pay someone to do that. This is a dangerous excuse. Professional specialization is vital for the evolution of society, but it should never nullify the basic competence of being a functional human being in the physical world. Floki was a master shipbuilder, but he was also a blacksmith, a warrior, a navigator, a lumberjack. He understood the interconnection of systems. He did not outsource essential skills for his survival and that of his clan. True mastery is not knowing everything about one thing, but knowing enough about many things to solve problems at the frontier of your specialty. What we call survival skills today, they simply called life. The cost of convenience is the loss of self-efficacy. Every time you outsource a simple task that is within your learning capacity, like assembling furniture, changing a tire, fixing a basic appliance, you send a message to your brain: I am incapable. I need a mediator between me and reality. This drains your confidence and increases anxiety in crisis situations. The competent individual who fixes their own faucet feels in control of their environment. The dependent individual feels at the mercy of the next service provider or the next technological failure. The risk of breaking a plastic part or a screw is always lower than the risk of becoming irremediably dependent. The comfort zone is, in truth, the zone of greatest danger, as it atrophies your response capabilities and makes the creation of new neural connections impossible. Neuroplasticity demands friction. It demands that you force your brain to solve problems it has never faced. Think of the concept of robust generalism. In times of stability, the specialist thrives. In times of chaos or scarcity, the robust generalist survives and thrives. Floki's ability to build a ship alone, far from any industrial infrastructure, was the ultimate manifestation of this robust generalism. He didn't just have the skill, he had the practical stoicism to accept that the process would involve pain, failure, and relentless repetition. He understood that the most important tool is not in the toolbox, but between his ears. Lesson 3 is not about saving money, it's about personal sovereignty. It's about understanding that every skill you acquire, however mundane, is one more brick in the wall of your independence. The difference between the person who fixes the faucet and the person who waits is the difference between the agent and the object, between the active subject and the passive recipient of circumstances. The true tragedy of modernity is not the lack of knowledge. We have all the world's knowledge in the palm of our hand. The tragedy is the lack of courage to apply that knowledge, to dirty one's hands, to accept the risk of error.
The fear of appearing incompetent is the greatest killer of competence. Do you prefer to be impeccable in theory or functional in practice? Knowledge without application is merely sterile information. Information only transforms into wisdom when it is processed by failure. Floki didn't read a manual on how to build ships, he built ships, failed, and built again, adapting to the wood, the climate, and the urgency of his mission. Therefore, the three lessons connect in a virtuous cycle of competence or a vicious cycle of dependence. Lesson 1, the disconnection, shows us we are disassociated from the process. Lesson 2, the internalization, demands we stop outsourcing our memory. And Lesson 3, the cost of inaction, forces us to embrace practical risk as the engine of mastery. The cost of not fixing that dripping faucet is not the price of the plumber. It is the marginal cost of your self-efficacy. When you outsource a simple problem, you aren't just buying convenience, you are selling a small portion of your capacity to deal with the world. The truth is that practical competence is built upon a pile of small, non-fatal failures. Think of the mental process of fixing the faucet. You try to tighten it, it leaks more. You disassemble it, lose a washer. You watch a tutorial, discover you need a specific tool. Each of these micro failures is a crucial data point. It's your brain mapping reality. This screw is left-hand thread. This seal is butyl rubber. The water pressure must be turned off before disassembly. When you pay the plumber internalizes this failure. He learns, he strengthens himself. You, the passive observer, remain at zero or worse, regress as you reinforce the loop of dependence. This is the cost of inaction, the silent degradation of your resilience. People who are competent in few things are psychologically fragile because they have no empirical evidence that they can survive disorder. The person who built their own shelf, who changed the tire in the rain, who fixed the leak, has an unshakable foundation of "I can solve this." This is the architecture of resilience. The challenge. The final question is not whether you can build a boat, but rather, what are you actively refusing to learn to fix today? You must actively seek what we call high-friction return tasks. These are tasks that, while inconvenient, offer a disproportionate return in terms of learning, self-efficacy, and internalization. Start small. Choose one thing that is broken around you. Do not pay to fix it. Fix it yourself. If this content compelled you to pick up a screwdriver, share it with someone who needs to stop outsourcing their life.